So recently I was at an elementary school just as recess was ending, and when the bell rang, some kids slowly walked to their lining up area, but then other kids ran just directly into their classroom, and then another group of kids just kept playing on the playground. They were completely ignoring the bell altogether. And the kids in line, they waited for their teachers to show up, but pretty soon they started pushing and shoving and sitting down on the ground. And some kids even went back out to the playground to play. And the supervision staff, they tried to get them back in lines, but it was all in vain until their teacher showed up. Later in the day, I had a chance to observe the students going to the cafeteria for lunch. Half of a fourth grade class was sort of like milling around outside the classroom while the other half was inside getting ready to leave. And at the same time, other groups of kids were walking past in these big clumps without their teacher, and they were yelling and laughing. And finally, one teacher simply opened her door and her entire class bolted through the shrubbery towards the eating area, mowing down all the little kids in their path. This school seemed to be full of peer conflict, rude behavior towards adults, and just a lot of chaos. But the solution to these problems is a lot easier than you think. It's lining up routines and procedures. Now, using lines in schools is not a new idea, but it's kind of a controversial one for some educators. So here's the controversy. Our modern education system was designed about 200 years ago when we were moving from an agrarian-based economy to an industrialized one. So industrialists created public schooling to teach future factory workers to arrive on time, to stand in line, to respond to bells and whistles, to sit at a table to work and assemble things, and basically do what they were told. I do think it's a worthwhile discussion to have. Given that our education system was designed to suit factory work, does this model still make sense? In my mind, things like lining up are still a good idea. And they're actually really good for kids and for schools. And here's why. Lines calm the chaos and they help keep transitions smooth. Now, you've heard me say it before, transitions are not your friend. Transitions are where chaos and disorder live and thrive. Anytime kids move from point A to point B, there's opportunities for problems. Particularly in younger grades, during transitions, it's just really hard to adequately supervise them unless kids are in an orderly line. The lack of direct supervision and the lack of structure causes a lot of inappropriate behaviors. Think about it. Anytime you hear about bullying at school, it's almost always during these unstructured times when adults are not supervising. When chaos is reduced by routines and procedures, then kids feel safe and comfortable at school. They connect, they bond, and they can learn. Next, lines help with school security. When you observe a school and students are passing through hallways and orderly lines, it's easier to see who belongs there and who does not. You can see from a distance that the children out of class belong to a group and they're not just roaming around unsupervised. The chances of a child wandering off seriously diminishes. When students are in line, you're also more likely to notice a stranger on campus because people who belong are part of the group, walking single file, and they're not wandering around. Consider all of your transitions at your school. In an orderly school, kids should transition around the school in a single line with their teacher every time they move from point A to point B. When they go from class to lunch, lunch back to class, to the playground, classroom to the bus, they should walk in a line. As you prepare your school for clear routines and procedures around lining up, here are some do's and don'ts to consider. Do lead lines with an adult. When you transition students to a new location, like to recess, teachers should walk their students all the way there until they're sure that another adult is present to supervise. It's possible later in the year, maybe for older classes, to earn the privilege of walking independently without their teacher, while their teacher watches them from the doorway. Now, if they're quiet, they're respectful, they can keep the privilege, and if not, it could be revoked. Don't excuse students directly from your classroom to recess. When this is allowed, essentially what you're saying is that the playground starts right outside your door. Instead, the message really should be that the hallway is the hallway with its own expectations, and the playground is the playground with its own expectations. Do consider creating a central lining up location. This central gathering place is helpful for everything from before school to after recess to assemblies and even for emergencies. This location might be your blacktop, a grass area, or even the auditorium. The gathering place creates a sense of school community where we see each other and we know who's there and who's not. Don't try to teach a new routine for every event. Having a central location for most events keeps you from having to teach too many routines. It organizes the chaos. Do arrive on time to pick up students when they're in line. Yes, this means rinsing out your coffee cup before the bell rings and making your way to the playground on time. Don't make kids wait more than 1 to 2 minutes when they're in line. It may sound extreme, but hear me out. Just stand at a typical elementary school after recess and watch. After about 1 minute of waiting in line, kids start to joke around, touch each other, jostle, bump out of line, even sit down on the blacktop. And that's even if there's yard supervisors present. By the time the teacher arrives, the class is a mess. He touched me, she cut in line. The problem is not the lining up procedure. It's just that the kids are being asked to do something that they're not able to do. While lines create order in a school, making kids wait too long creates the opposite effect. Make a community agreement that all teachers will arrive to pick up their students within 1 to 2 minutes of the bell ringing. And when the teacher arrives, here's a tip. Do a quick check-in with the class by walking along the line, greeting the students, and asking how recess went. The teacher's going to pick up on any issues that came up at recess and can solve them immediately. The goal here is to orient students from playtime to learning time. Finally, don't line up by gender. When I was a kid, teachers had students line up by boys and girls. Given our cultural pushback on rigid gender roles and our desire to make all kids feel comfortable, this is a non-starter. If you must have 2 lines, allow kids to choose their line or assign them alphabetically or by table group or some other more objective way. While it may seem antiquated for some, lines in school create a sense of order and safety. When we create predictable, secure environments, students and teachers can get back to the business of learning. For more information, go to lauramoiman.com where you can download free resources, watch free training videos, check out my online courses, and connect with me there.